Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unexpected Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we are back with one of our past clients, Olivia, talking all about our rebrand experience with her. So, before we jump into everything, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everyone who you are, what you do, how long you've been in business, all of that great stuff?
Sure. So, like Jessie said, my name is Olivia Ewan. I am a wedding and portrait photographer out of the city of New Orleans. I do travel, but primarily a local wedding photographer. I've been in business full time since about 2020, but have been photographing people really my whole life. But really, the pandemic was like the thing that kicked me into full time.
I feel like that's what a lot of people, the pandemic, it was either make or
Yeah.
break for a lot of people. But no, that's awesome. So obviously you've been around for a little bit. Did you have any challenges that you were kind of running into with your brand and website before you were like, okay, it's time to reach out, time to get this done?
Yeah, so I really think a good place to start is 2020. And kind of from the beginning, I knew what I wanted my work to look like, where I wanted to go, but obviously I lacked experience from just like working with clients and just being in the industry long term. And so I think really in the first phases of my business, trying to create a brand that I maybe wasn't ready for or had the
Mhm.
experience to back up, I think was kind of difficult because, like I said, I knew where I wanted to go, but didn't necessarily have the work or the experience at that point to get there. And so, really, up until we started working together this past year, that has been my main focus is to grow into and kind of figure out like what do I want my brand to be? And that's something that I really feel like you can only get through experience and time.
Yeah, I think it's something where we always like to say that when you're rebranding, you should do it in a way where you're like, okay, this is where I want to be. So like this is the level I want everything to be at. But that's a like such an interesting distinction because you can be like, I want to be all the way up here, but it takes steps. You have to work your way up and everything needs to match that. So it is a like progression and it's something that, you might take one step at a time and do a little slowly because if you make that jump too early and you're like, I don't have anything to back this up. I don't have the experience to back it up. This is where I want to be, but now it almost doesn't really feel connected to, who I am or what I'm doing right now. It can kind of make you feel just as off balance as having one that's kind of under where you're currently at. So
Totally.
I think that's a an interesting balance to kind of work through and realize that it takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. Things are going to change year after year and you just got to kind of take it one step at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So before we started working together, had you tried to kind of create your brand and website on your own, or how long had you been kind of playing around with what you had before you were like, okay, it's time to get it completely redone?
Yeah, so I had actually worked with another designer back in 2020 when I went full time, and that was a really good experience. It was a semi customizable template where the designer took a template that she had already created and then just kind of tweaked it to my preferences. And at the time when I transitioned into full time doing this, without another job, that was the right fit for me because I didn't quite know exactly who I was or what my brand was about at that
Mhm.
point. But I needed something a little more than just like a Wix template that I like do on my own. So I felt like that was a good step, even though, like I said earlier, I knew that a custom website and brand experience was something that I wanted, but I knew that I needed some time to really work through what clients were I being like was I being drawn to, what types of events, who did I really want to be, and that again, like I said, really took some time. And so, well, the short answer is yes. And then obviously through the years leading up until we worked together, I would do small mini updates like changing out a font or a color. And then finally, by the time we worked together, I was like, yes, I have outgrown this. It is time to basically scrap it all and start from the beginning.
That's such a great point though, because this is kind of the distinction that we love to make when people are coming to us and like, okay, when should I be doing this? When should I be going and getting all these custom things? And while we would love to be like, always get custom, like you should always get custom. The thing is, when you are figuring out who you are and what you want to do and who you want to serve and all those really, you know, things that your business is kind of based on, it really is a better route to go with a template type site and kind of go that route, because it does give you the flexibility to kind of play around, give yourself time to figure out who you are and kind of where you want your brand to go before you do make this full investment. Because we're always, we the last thing we want to see is someone to make a full investment in a custom site and get all this stuff done, and then 2 months later be like, I actually
This
don't want to
isn't
do
me.
this at all. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's such a hard thing because you want to stand out and you want to have something that looks really really nice, and you can absolutely get that with a template if you put the time into it or have someone kind of customize it for you so it looks really great. But sometimes jumping in too quick is, can be just as detrimental as jumping in too late.
Yeah, and when I think about our process together, it is just more than, like, picking colors and, like, fonts. You really get at the heart and the meat of, like, who I am, why do I do what I do, and I think that had we worked together even, like, before I had my daughter or a year or even 2 years before we did, I think that the process would have been a little overwhelming, and I don't know that I would have necessarily had the confidence and the answers to the questions that you asked when you're making design decisions. And like you said, it is such a big investment that I knew, 4 years ago before we worked together that I would hope to get to that point, but it definitely took time.
Yeah, it's not an overnight decision, and it's not something that you want to, I don't want to say go into lightly, but like go into kind of like haphazardly. It's something that you want to really be able to like sit down and be like, I can tell you everything behind my business and I'm really secure in like what I want to do and who I want to do it with. Those questions are going to play a big role in how your entire brand, like even your brand messaging, what you're saying, how your visuals look, like how people are guided through your website, all of that is important in growing it. So I think it's hard because sometimes you don't really think. You're like, well, what does my ideal client have to do with my color palette? But like, it has a lot to do with your color palette, and we need to make sure that everything kind of flows and matches what they would want to see and what's going to draw them in.
Yeah, definitely.
So, since launching the brand and website, how have they been working for you? Have you seen any kind of transformations or results or things coming out from clients or other people in your area that have been kind of talking about it?
Yeah, so I feel like the biggest transformation that I've experienced, and this was a goal that I had expressed when we started working together, was to really up my reputation and how I presented to planners in our area,
Mm.
and really have the brand visuals, the websites, the marks, have everything consistent so that, when a planner gets a client and they hear the client's vision, that they have a representation of like what an experience with me looks like, feels like, moves through. And so that has been, a really impactful change is honestly the amount of planner referrals and inquiries that I'm getting more consistently. Obviously, I'm still like it's been really great for like an SEO purpose, but that really was my goal, was to present well to planners because they are going to be the best kind of funnel for
Mm.
clients that work well with me and my style. And I really wanted something visual for planners to be able to refer back to, that they could reference when thinking about clients that they're working with.
And I think that's such a big thing that we don't necessarily, I know when we're thinking about brand new website, we talk a lot about ideal clients and, making sure that it attracts them and it looks great and all that stuff. But with the wedding industry specifically, like the one or two kind of vendors that are booked before are, venues and wedding planners. And those people can make a big impact in who gets sent to you and referring to you. And like it can, make a big difference in your business if you get on, I don't want to say the good side, but like if you make strong connections with these wedding planners. And I think when we're looking at people in the industry, they are going to want to see someone who, represents themselves really professionally, not in a, corporate way, but is really clean and has stuff that looks really good and it's really clear. And they want to be confident that when they're sending clients, your way, it's going to be a good experience for them because they're kind of putting their own name and weight behind, who they're recommending. So when we're looking at all of this stuff, it's not just the client that we want to make a good impression, but it's those other people in the wedding industry that might be, pointing people in our direction that want to be like, look, it's going to be a really great experience. Here's everything you can expect. Everything's going to look great. We'll handle all of this stuff, XYZ. It's going to be great. No worries at all. And it's not like, is this going to be the right fit? Are they going to be, the feel and match everything else with the wedding and be the kind of, professional that we want to work with. So I think having something with these vendors who might be able to pick out what's good and bad a little better than, people who are only looking at wedding photographers websites for the first time in their life, I think is really important
Yeah.
to, have that. And it can be a big boost to, your reputation and the clients you bring in when we do get connected with some of these other vendors.
Yeah, and I think that like the super important part about working with a planner is, they're often the first stop for these specific clients and they really have a good understanding of what they're looking for and what they need. And when I get a inquiry or referral from a planner, like it's usually such an incredible fit. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
the website and the custom branding really just helps make that process seamless for when a planner does recommend me because I have this whole kind of like online presence or presentation before a client ever even talks to me, that then matches my demeanor, matches my heart about my work, and then also obviously matches like full galleries that I send. And so I really feel like that has been a very helpful part is to just have this very sturdy and solid online representation and portfolio that y'all help me kind of create.
Yeah, it's that kind of difference between, having people come to the site who are just kind of shopping around and figuring out what they want versus, vendors or wedding planners being like, okay, this is the vision you want for your wedding. This is the person that's going to help, bring it to life. And so it's maybe not, I have 10, 15 people pulled up. It's okay. They recommended this person. Let me go to this person and like see what it's all about and see what they have. So it is that kind of importance of having that out there and making sure that across the board, everything, looks great and has that great experience that you're going to give on the wedding day as well.
Yeah.
Was there any part of the process that was your favorite part or anything that kind of surprised you throughout the entire, rebrand process?
I wouldn't say surprised, but I would say really appreciated is maybe a better adjective. I feel like anything creative, I feel like creatives don't necessarily get the best reputation for being thorough or intentional or just like process driven when it's
Hmm.
creative. And I think that that's something that really sets y'all apart is like, yes, you're really good at designing and you're really good at like putting colors and shapes and fonts and things together. But I feel like none of that only goes so far if you don't know the person that you're working with. And I just feel like y'all's process is so flushed out and consistent, yet personalized too. And a lot of the tangibles that you would send back to me, I never had a doubt in my mind that you understood me and understood what I was about and what direction I was going in. Like, I was genuinely shocked every time that I would get one of those deliverables. I was like, how do you, like, you could summarize and put into words things better about myself than I could. And I felt like that was just a surprise in a way, but just like something that I feel like I haven't really experienced with a lot of other creatives.
It's definitely a big part of what we love doing is kind of getting to know each like individual person really well and kind of get a look into their, minds and their business. And I know especially like sometimes it's really hard to express your vision and be like, this is what I'm picturing and this is what I want. And like sometimes it's really hard to even, find those on Pinterest or find things that look similar or like are the vibe that you want. But I think, we have worked a lot on the back end of like the right questions to ask and the right things to do and how to actually get into each person's personality, because that's what's really going to make you stand out as a photographer. Like you are you because of your personality and how you approach things and how you work with clients. So really trying to get into that so it's not just something that yeah, this looks pretty, but it really connects with you and it feels like you and you feel like your entire like yourself and how you're going to approach, each and every client is kind of laid out and there's no surprises on their end when they get in a call with you and they're like, this is exactly what I expected. Like checked every box, good, perfect. I'm all set. So I think we love when everyone feels that way. That's always what we try to do. And we love kind of getting into all of those little details with everyone, and it really is a good way to have that strategy behind it instead of just kind of like you said, just their shapes and letters and words and they're on the page, but it actually is, there's a reason behind it and there's, some strategy and some thought to make sure that it works as well as it can for every person.
Yeah.
So I have one final question for you. How
Okay.
confident do you feel now with your new brand and website?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like I only grow to love it more every time I look at it, and like especially when I see my feed, my Instagram feed kind of automatically updating at the bottom, and it just all feels so right. And I think something that we had talked about too that I really wanted was a website that I felt like I could grow into, but
Mhm.
also still feels relevant and authentic to like who I am right now. And I totally feel that of just that it's set the bar really high for me to keep reaching and achieving, but yet it still feels true to where I'm at now. So it feels really good to not look at the website and be like, oh, this like needs some work at some point, or I don't like love this, or this doesn't feel right. And I'm just so thrilled with it. And like I said, fall in love with it even more every time I look at it.
Well, we love to hear that, and we absolutely loved working with you. I think the end product is amazing, and we love every time we look at it. We're like, it looks so good, and it feels so much like you, and your photos just make it even better. So, if anyone wants to check it out and see everything that we created together, where can they find you online?
Yes, so my website is my name. It's Olivia Ewan. That's YUEN photo.com. And then same for Instagram at with an underscore Olivia Ewan. And that's where you can find me.
Perfect. Well, we will link those down in the show notes. Absolutely. Go check them out. And thank you again so much for coming on today. And we'll catch you in the next episode.
Sounds good. Thank you.